All right, it is 7:30. Yeah, it is. All right, so we'll go ahead and get started. Uh, there were a few things covered in the material for the week, but really the material for the week you need to be using in your final project. So what I want to do is just show a few things, show some Java code that you will need to use in your final project and should really help you get some stuff done. Okay. So one of the first things you have to do is you have to open a file and you have to read in a file, right? So you need to ask the user what file, you need to read in files that are in a specific directory. That's one of the things that you need to do, okay? So first thing we need to look at is what we call the J file chooser. It is an already built Java class that provides a nice like choose file dialog box that you usually see, if you run whatever operating system you run and you're trying to open a file, it kind of looks like that allows you to select the file you want to open. Okay, so this right here, I still just have some Java code left over from my last demonstration, but what I'm going to add on to here is just some code that shows off the J file chooser. So let me show you what I have so far. Right now, I'm just creating a window with actually 2 buttons on it, with 3 buttons on it. Let's just make it down to 1 button. So this right here just creates a window with 1 button on it. Let me run it, show you what it looks like. As soon as it finishes compiling. Sometimes this can be a little bit slow. Come on. Why did that not run? Oh, I had the wrong thing selected. I had this my exceptions selected. No, don't want to do that. I want to run my GUI. Sorry. That's why it took so long is because I was trying to run a different program. Let's edit this so it runs the actual GUI one. Why? Okay. Now I'll run the GUI one. There we go. So there's my window with a button on it that says open file, right? If I click it right now, nothing happens, and that's fine because I don't have any code set up when it's clicked on. Okay, so now when it's clicked on, actually, let's call this open directory. Open directory. Actually, let me make a directory with a bunch of files in it. Let me just make it here on my desktop, CMIS 242. Have this file, have a bunch of these files. File, then file 1, file 2, file 3, and that's good enough. So just know I have this directory called CMIS 242, and it has all these different files in it. Okay. So let's ask the user to select a directory to open, and we can do that with what we call a J file chooser. It's called J file chooser. Let's make a new J file chooser. Let me get my other thing on my other screen over here. Okay. Like that. Now, if we want to tell it to open a directory, we have to specifically tell it we're looking for directories. We do that with jFileChooser.setFileSelectionMode and say jFileChooser, not JFrame, jFileChooser.directoriesOnly, so that we can only select a directory to open. Now we need to actually open the jFileChooser and let them choose a directory. Show open from dialog, and the parent will just be the frame. There we go. And let's just run this and we'll see what we got so far. Get this. So now again, we have the button Open Directory. Now when we click Open Directory, it opens up this right here and allows us to select a directory. So for me, I want to select that desktop in the CMIS 242 directory, and we'll open it. And nothing happens yet, but that's fine because I don't have any code after this show open dialog, right? So now I need to put in some additional code about what needs to happen after they open the directory. So we can say if the option is equal to J file chooser dot approve. That means they successfully selected a directory. So what do I want to do in that case? Well, let's see what are all the files inside of that directory. Let's just list them out. And how do we do that? We do it like this. Make a file, say F. Actually, this will be dir, and this will be the file. Excuse me. It says file, but it can be a file or directory. It really is the same thing. So it can be the directory that they actually selected, and we do that like this: jfc dot get selected file. There we go. Should be right. JFC. Oh, not new JFC, just JFC. I guess select the file. So this directory, dir is the directory selected by the user with the JFC. Okay. So now, how do we get a list of everything inside that directory? Pretty easily, actually. Let's look at it like this. We can get a list of the files. Do it like this. For file, lowercase file, in the directory dot list files, built-in function. Now for each of those, let's just pop up a message box that shows all the different files inside of there. Do a J option pane dot show message dialog. Let's say no parent, and each time let's do the file dot file name. We get file name. There we go. So what is happening here? So we're making a J file chooser. We're setting it to only let us set directories. We're showing that J file chooser to the user. When the user selects a directory, we'll get this right here. The option will be the approve option. Now in the approve option, we're getting the directory they actually selected. And here we're looping over every file in that directory. That dir list files gives us all the files. And for each file, we're just going to show a message pop-up box that shows what the file name actually is. All right, so let's run that. And you'll see, let me bring up my directory again so we can follow along when it starts listing files to us. So there's that directory I'm going to select. So when we do open directory, let me get to that one, desktop, CMIS 242. So that's this directory. When we open it, see, we get a pop-up box for file2.txt. It's right there. We get one for out, which is that subdirectory. We get one for src, which is that subdirectory. We get one for file.txt, which is right there. We get one for .idea. It's a hidden one, but it's in there. And then we get one for file1.txt, which is right there. And then one for this untitled whatever. And then for file3.txt, which is right there. And so, yeah. So instead of getting all these extra ones, let's make a new subfolder. So it only has the stuff we want. Let's just call it stuff we want. Oops. Stuff we want. And we'll just put these files that I selected into there. Okay. So now if we can run it, we'll cut down on a lot of those excess files that we don't care about. All right, let's open the directory. That same directory, where's it? Desktop, CMIS 242, the stuff we want. Open that directory. And you see we get file2.txt, we get file.txt, we get file1.txt, and file3.txt. And that's all of them. Okay, so this right here loop through all the files in that subdirectory. This is kind of in your project where you need to, you have a bunch of media files. You either have CDs or DVDs and things like that, and each one is inside of its own file. Well, this is how you can select a specific directory and then have a loop that goes over each file in that directory. So if this was, my music, or my manager loading in information from the files, I would load, music CD or music DVD or the other types. I could do that with the file right here. So let's actually do that. So in here, I'll show you how to read the file. So in, say, the file.txt, this is the contents of it. I just put some numbers. For your media, you need more than this, right? You need the title of it, you need the ID of the music, and so on and so forth. But I'm just going to show you how to read numbers from a file. You'll need to expand upon that to actually read in all the information related specifically to that media. All right. But for my example, I just have 3 numbers inside the file that I'm going to read. And all the files are the same. I just copied and pasted the files. So all files contain really the same 3 numbers. So let's open up the file and read from the file. All right. So how do we do that? So anytime we want to do reading, really we need to use a scanner. For the most part, you want to use a scanner. And we can make a new scanner on that file. It's got to be in a try-catch block. You should know try-catch blocks from the discussion last week. Okay, so we have a scanner that's connected to this file, and this file is one of the files in the directory. As you see, again, this is the loop doing each file in the directory. The file is one specific file in the directory, and the scanner opens up scanning into the file so that we can read out of it. Okay, well, we can get an individual line out of the file with this. So in this case, when we look at the contents, line will be this 45, the first right here, because we just opened the file and we're reading a line, and the first line is 45. Okay. So what can we do with that? Let's convert that, or we read it in as a line, but we want it as a number. We want the number 45. How do we get the number 45? We get it with int. Number is integer dot parse int. And we give it that line. Actually, if there's an exception, let's just so if anything goes wrong, let's print out the exception. So, and after we read in the number, let's just print out the number so we can see we've gotten what we want out of there. All right, so let's run it. All right, so we'll open the directory. We'll navigate back to that same directory, the stuff we want. We'll open it. As you see, it printed out 45 4 times. Now, why did it do that? Because when we look at the file, it's these numbers, three numbers, right? But what happened is it opened up file.txt and read the 45 and printed it. Then it opened up file 1 and did the same thing. Then file 2 and did the same thing. And file 3 and did the same thing. So it did this same code on 4 different files, all of which have the same content. So that's where you get the 45s. But how do we read the other information from this file? Right? So what we can do, we can have a loop while scan.hasNext. Let's move that stuff inside of here. And so we don't get multiple files repeated, let's just go ahead and delete the extra files now, because I've already shown you how to get a list of all the files in there. So let's delete that so that really we're only going to read from this one file. So now we have the loop, right? That's doing every file. For each file, we're doing this code. What does this code do? This code opens up a scanner to the file. This right here is another loop. It's a while loop. It's saying while the scanner has next. That means while there is more stuff in the file that I haven't read yet. While there is something left in the file, I'm going to read the line. I'm going to parse that into an integer, and then I'm just going to print, whatever that integer was. Okay, let's run that. Let's open the directory, go to the desktop, CMIS 242, stuff we want, open that, and there you go. I get the 45, the 65, and the 12. And that 45, 65, and 12 is happening right inside this loop, because when you open a file, you start at the beginning. So you start right here, and you're saying scan has next. That is true. The line is equal to this. Then the number parses that into a number, and then we print it. And then it says, and now we're here. Now you're going to say scan has next. It does have more, so it reads that line. Then you'll say scan has next. It's true. We read that line. Then you say scan has next, and that ends up being false because there's nothing left in the file. So you stop doing that loop. Okay. So that's your basic how to read a file. So you can imagine something like this. Maybe let's say it's a CD. Let's say the title. Actually, let's have the ID. The ID is 123. The title is my title. The artist is my artist. And what else does a CD have? Let's say it has 15 songs or something, right? Let's say that is what makes up a CD. That's not exactly what's on your assignment. I'm not going to do the assignment for you. But let's imagine this is the information for a CD and we want to read it in. So imagine that's the ID, imagine that's the title, imagine that's the artist, and imagine that's the number of songs on it. So actually, let's make a new class, a media CD class that has an ID, it has a title, it has an artist, it has number of songs. Let's give it a constructor. And it'll take the ID. It'll set the variables. Like so. Oops. All right. So let's say we have a media CD, the class that looks like this. So now when we're reading from the file, so what's the first thing in the file? The first thing is this ID, right? So let's read it from the file. We have to parse it to an integer. Not local scan.line. Scan.next line. There. Typos will get you. All right. So that gets the ID from the first line of the file. Now let's get the title. It's just the next line, because next line gives you a string. The reason why we had to parse it as an integer is because the ID is an integer. But the title is already a string, and this gives you a string, so there's no conversion necessary. But then we have a string for artist. Same thing, it's already a string. And then we have number of songs. Again, that's an integer, so we have to parse it as an integer. Okay. So now let's make a new media CD that has this information. It has this ID, it has this title, has this artist, and it has this number of songs in it. Let's go back to media CD for a second. Let's give it a toString method. Public string toString method. And let's just put all the information. It'll be an ID of ID plus. This is just going to be a really simple toString method. A title of this dot title plus the artist is this dot artist. And what else left? The nums songs is this dot num songs. All that in a string, and then we'll return the string. So all I'm doing, just converting this media CD to a string, is just saying what the values are. So I'm going to go back here. So we've opened this file, we've read in all this information from the file, we've made a new CD with those values, and now let's just see what the CD is. Let's do that with the J option pane dot show message dialog. We'll do the CD.toString. So what this is culminating in really is just showing you how to read a file and create a Java object out of it. And then we're just going to show the object to show you it got the information from the file. Let me make sure I save this. Yeah, I think it's saved. All right. So let's open that directory. Desktop CMIS 242, stuff we want. Open it. Look, so it read that file in. Now I have a CD where these are the values for it. The CD has an ID of 123. It has this as the title, has this as the artist, and it has this as the number of songs. The good thing is we can have multiple of these in here. Let's copy and paste that. We'll call it file2.txt. Let's change some of the values. Say this ID is 321. The title is Nevermind. The artist is Nirvana, and it has 8 songs on it. Let's save it. So now when we run it, we have these 2 files in here. You know, one of them has this information, the other has this information, but you'll see we're able to read both of them in. Go back to the directory. Open it. There we go. There's the first one, the Nevermind ID, Nevermind, Nirvana, 8 songs. And there's the next one. This ID with that title, artist, and the number of songs is 15. But what you need to do, you know, we create the CD in here, but it kind of goes away outside of the loop, right? Outside this loop, you can't access that anymore. That's where your manager class comes into play. I'm not going to, do out a manager class for you, but that's where, imagine I already had a manager class. Instead of displaying it, you would do something like manager.add media or whatever your equivalent function is, and you would add the CD to it, right? Imagine you already have this manager class and you already made a manager variable. You would kind of do it like that. All right. So that's really how you can read in all the media that is stored in a specific folder that the user is able to select with a JFile chooser. And that's a large percentage of your assignment. There's a couple other things, such as you have to be able to rent out one of the media. You have to get the cost of the media. For the cost of the media, it's probably, maybe it's something as simple as, after num songs, we have, it costs $1.99. So how would we, change our stuff, change our classes to fit that? Well, after songs, we have, float the rent cost. Let's add that to our constructor. And then add it to our toString. And so when we're reading it in, after we read the number of songs, we need to read in the rent cost. It's not an integer now. Now it's a float.parseFloat. All right. And when we can construct it, we then need to give it the rent cost. Same thing. Let's throw up that J option pane again so you can see it still reads in successfully. So it was as simple as that I added a rent cost onto it. Go back, open up that directory. Oh, what we didn't do. So we added a cost to this one. We need to add a cost to the other one. This one's $2.99. All right, open that up. There you go. That CD, the rent cost is $2.99. And onto the other one. Oh, number format, empty string. Oh, I didn't save this file. Change it. Yep. See, I didn't save it. All right, let's do this again. That's why I did this catch here and print it out, so I knew what went wrong. There we go. Let's do our desktop, CMIS 242, stuff we want. Open it. There you go. There's the Nirvana CD. It costs $1.99 to rent, and there's the other CD. It costs $2.99 to rent. So whenever you're doing your rental portion of your assignment, that's how you can return the rent, or that's how you can display how much it costs to rent. Okay. Is there anything else that I needed to talk about for that? No. That's all I was really going to cover for the assignment. A lot of stuff for the assignment is kind of a rehash of stuff we've already done. I just really wanted to cover, this JFile chooser and reading information from a file and constructing a, one of your Java classes from that information out of the file. That's really the new thing that was introduced this week. A couple of things I want to mention before we open it up for questions is this assignment is due on Tuesday night at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I cannot accept this assignment late, period. I cannot accept it late because I have a very short turnaround time to have it graded and your final grade submitted to the university. Therefore, I cannot take any late submissions for this assignment. Also, If you have any previous assignment that you scored poorly on, you can also go back, fix your problems, and resubmit that to have it graded again. There are late penalties that apply to that, but if you did really poorly on a past assignment, this is definitely a chance to increase your score. The deadline also applies for those assignments. I cannot take anything submitted after Tuesday night at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. All right. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask them.